Welcome to Meaningful Interviews with Rabbi Chaim Dalfin. I'm here in Katamon, Eretz Yisrael, Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, with a wonderful couple, and we'll be talking to the husband primarily, Rabbi Eliezer Goldschmidt from Hamburg, Germany, and he will tell us briefly his life story, his happenings, how he came from Germany to America, from America to Eretz Yisrael, and we'll go from there. Baruch Hashem, Hashem has blessed them with arichas yomim, long years, ad mea ve'esim, as we say in Chabad, ad mea v'shmonim, and it's wonderful to be here. So, Rebbe Eliezer, please take over. Tell us about your early beginnings, your parents, your grandparents, just a little history, please. Go ahead, Rebbe Eliezer, please.
As it was mentioned, I was born in Hamburg of a family, the youngest of three children. I had two older brothers. The middle one, unfortunately, passed away already.
And when were you born?
I was born in Tafresh Tzadik in 1930, in Schwat Tafresh Tzadik.
In what city?
In Hamburg. And the things were, so to speak, usual, but as a result of the changes in the economic situation, my parents moved over to together with my grandfather when I was approximately 5 years old.
Where did they move to?
My grandfather was a resident for several generations already in Hamburg.
So you say they moved. Where did they move to?
To a different address in Hamburg.
Oh, in Hamburg, I understand.
In Hamburg.
Right.
And therefore I began to know my grandfather very much as well. And from there on, I went to the school, which was the Talmud Torah in Hamburg, which was located right next to the main shul.
Was the Rav of the shul Rabbi Carlebach?
Yes. Yes.
So you knew Shlomo Carlebach when he was a young boy?
No, I I did not make any personal connection. I knew we were sitting, and I knew that Rabbi Carlebach was the Rav of the shul. But
Rab Naftali, right? Naftali Carlebach?
No, not Naftali
No.
Carlebach. It was, I believe, a brother of Naftali Carlebach.
Okay.
It was one of the Carlebachs.
Right, okay. Anyway, so you went to a Talmud Torah in Hamburg.
Yes, this school had both, so to speak, Hebrew lessons and had as well, in other words, Jewish lessons and had
German lessons.
and general cultural
Right.
lessons.
And your family goes back how many years in Germany?
The Goldschmidt families goes back in Germany. For at least we have documents, or we have people have written about them for something like the beginning of 1600 and or even earlier.
And you were Yekes all along.
My parents, that was my father's family was Yekish. My father married obviously my mother later. She was the story of my mother's family is that my mother's mother, in other words, my grandmother, married at the age after as a young person, so to speak, as a person who haven't not married at the age of 40, to a person who was a widow, who had been the son of a Rebbe who came from Lithuanian to Germany, and he became a widower. He had one child, and then he married my mother.
At 40. At 40.
40.
And she had a child.
She had a
one,
child.
One child. Your mother.
Yes.
Wow. At what age? At 41, 42?
Yes, at 41.
Yeah.
In 1890. I have the exact date.
But your mother was born, you say, in 1890?
No, my mother was born in 1897.
1897. Okay.
In 1997.
Okay, let's go. So let's continue on with your the 1935 approximately. You were in Cheder in Talmud Torah. Go ahead.
Yes.
What about Kristallnacht? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, I can't get so quickly to history.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It has to do with the history of
Okay, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
Obviously, we began to feel, also I, as a child, began to feel I would say the danger of the
Nazis. Because Hitler started his thing in 1933.
Yes.
So you already felt it in Hamburg.
I felt it in Hamburg.
Even though he started it in Austria.
Well, yes, but I'm speaking about what I felt in Hamburg. In Hamburg, for example, when there was a parade, and the parade obviously was accompanied by music, I, as a child, had to turn and run away to the other direction for the simple reason that on one hand you were supposed to salute the flag, on the other hand that was absolutely dangerous for a Jew. So you learn to be, so to speak, as a child, you learn to be not only so to speak concerning the Jewish the religion, etc., but you may say you learned also the dangers of the political situation. Anyway, my parents also, obviously, it was getting worse and worse, and they decided they have to get out of Germany, and my father, who had been previous to the First World War studying in the insurance business in London with Lloyd's, and he got a position in Holland. And we went to Holland.
In what year?
We went to Holland immediately after Pesach 38.
Okay.
April 38.
And when was Kristallnacht? November of... Wait.
Kristalnacht. Then we went to Holland, but and to emigrate from Germany, so to speak. And at the border, going to Holland, the Dutch said to my parents, the law changed and they sent us back to Germany. That was obviously, I as a child, I was only 8 years old. My parents didn't transfer their concern to me.
Right.
But I always know that it must have been a terrible shock for them.
And how many siblings? I forgot. How many siblings were you? How many children?
3 boys.
3 boys. And
I was the youngest of 3.
Got it. Okay, continue, please.
And so we were at that stage, and we went back. They were sent us back to Germany, and we stayed at a small border town, Bentheim by the name, and made, so to speak, thinking, I suppose, my parents thinking what was going to be, because it was absolutely illegal for a Jew who emigrated, and we had been signed as immigrants from Germany, to come back to Germany. Then that's what we did. Anyway, we stayed there in the border town for some time. That was in April, till it came to be close to the time of the bar mitzvah of my oldest brother. which
So this was already 1939?
38. Yeah, I'm still talking about
38.
38. So we three boys were sent back to Hamburg, to the apartment which was the apartment of my grandfather. My parents not going on the same time. My parents only coming back on Friday before the bar mitzvah, because they thought that if the Gestapo says anything, that he's obligated to register with them only within 3 days, so he would have a free Shabbat. In Germany, it was still very much according to exactness.
Preciseness.
At that time. So, anyway.
Yekes.
I do not remember anything of the bar mitzvah itself. I only remember the Shabbat afterwards, after the bar mitzvah, when I and my
Other brother
wanted to go to the shul before my parents even, and in front of the door were 2 Gestapo agents. And they asked. Anyway.
They let you in or not?
Who lets me in? If you Gestapo says, you say, if you don't let them in, they'll see to it that they're in.
No, I'm asking, they were standing there not letting in the Jews into shul?
No, I don't understand quite the question.
You said there were 2 Gestapo agents
in front of our door.
In front of your house?
And at the house, at our house.
Why were they there?
In order, they knew that my father had registered at the bar on the Monday after the bar mitzvah, and they knew that he was there.
I understand. Okay. And what did they say? What did they want?
They wanted to see my parents.
Okay.
Anyway, so that was of course already a shock, how they came in and how they quietly went behind me. That I didn't even realize they were going behind me. Anyway, the situation is, as I say, so they told my father, and my father obviously told me this when I was an adult, if the Dutch wouldn't have put in a stamp into the passport that they didn't permit you to come in, we would have put you right away into a concentration camp. So that was a...
One second, there was no concentration camps yet.
There were.
Even before 1939?
Yes.
They took Jews to concentration camps in 1938?
Well, if there was any reason whatsoever that they could, then they call it prison, call it concentration camps, whatever you wish.
Right, okay, I understand.
Okay, so we were there, and my parents obviously were in a terrible situation because there were lots. This was, as I said, my brother's bar mitzvah was in June 38, and I continued to go to school. And in November 38 was the
Kristalnacht,
which in the house we didn't know see anything, but when my father had heard that this man was shot in Paris, so he told my oldest brother, "You don't go to shul tomorrow." But anyway, I went to school, and
but there was in where you were. Now you were still in Bentheim at the time, right?
No, we went back to Hamburg.
Oh, you went back to Hamburg. So in Hamburg, in the Yiddish area of Hamburg, was there Kristallnacht there or not?
Kristalnacht was in shul. It was not on any place.
No, they broke windows. They
didn't break windows in Hamburg. They were very organized.
That's what I'm asking.
They were very organized.
But I saw pictures of them breaking windows in certain cities. Am I wrong?
I do not know.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway,
you went back to school. Okay.
I went back to school.
But the situation was very dire.
On the way to school, I saw the destruction of the shul. which was the last previous night.
With Kristalnacht night.
Yes. And,
This main shul that you daven, that your parents daven, the Carlebach shul, the Rabbi,
yes.
that was destroyed. Was what? It was destroyed completely. Just broken windows.
Windows. They did not in Hamburg. They did not burn the shul. They destroyed.
They destroyed. They damaged it. They ruined it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And that was a terrible shock for me, as a person who, at a certain age, I was very
Right.
distraught. Anyway, I got completely sick. That one of them. I saw it also from the window of the school. The building of the school is still standing. Anyway.
Still standing today?
This building is still standing.
You went back?
No.
So how do you know it's still standing?
I know it is. I know it's there.
Well, you're a malach, you're a prophet.
No, there's a communication. We know what's
Okay.
I know what's going on.
Okay.
Anyway, my oldest brother took me back home. On the way, we met my uncle, who apparently had been authorized concerning the insurance of the things in shul. He tried to go and see. So we met him, and I remember this to this very day. And I was, as I said, in 38, I was
8 years old, yeah.
Yes, I remember the scene very well, and I asked my brother to get home. I don't want to see him. Obviously, I don't know what my uncle did at the time, but my uncle, by the way, was able to stay in Hamburg because he couldn't get a visa to someplace else. He sent the children out to England in a kindertransport, his children, but he unfortunately
Perished.
He perished. He had in 40 in Abaim B'Shalosh in 43, and a Jewish person who was a teacher in Hamburg and who had apparently a Dutch or a Swedish passport, got out and wrote about my uncle having built a mikveh underground, so to speak, in 43 for one moment, for the sake of one woman.
Wow, in Hamburg.
In Hamburg.
Mm-hmm. And he was transported where, to Auschwitz?
Pardon?
He was killed in a concentration camp?
He was killed it was approximately Yom Kippur in 44.
But where? In Treblinka, in Auschwitz?
In Auschwitz.
Okay.
Then afterwards he went to...
You want to say something?
I want to stop it.